You know, right off the bat, I have to say that the season finale of Arrow was awesome. Except for the last 10 minutes. Those last 10 minutes. Oh my god. You know what I loved about the season finale for Vikings? Is that even though that they had already been renewed for a third season, they tied up loose ends. They didn't establish plot lines and then just leave them there, leave them wide open, leave the wounds gaping open, and say, and basically take their money and run. Like, yeah, you tuned in and you were looking for closure, but nope, we opened up all these new plot lines, so we're taking our money and running away until next season. Next season. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. Alright, first of all, I should probably start with the good stuff first. Well, not only was this an exceedingly climactic conclusion to not only this little mini arc of Slade's takeover of the city, but also the entire season. This wraps things up with the Deathstroke story arc very nicely, and it even brings back some elements and characters and plot lines that were seemingly standalone earlier in the season, like the Suicide Squad and the League of Assassins. So that was much appreciated. I mean, when I watched these episodes, I said, well, those episodes are kind of cool, but I don't really know how these characters are going to come back this season. I mean, they honestly just seemed like setup characters. They seemed like they seemed like their own Barry Allens. Like, oh, you're going to get to see the adventures of the League of Assassins with Katrina Law Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. or something stupid like that. Or 8 p.m. because these shows normally air at night. Whatever. But yeah, the Suicide Squad, the League of Assassins, and even Amanda Waller actually came back this episode. They had, and even Diggle's wife, and they finally gave Diggle something to do. Which, that basically addressed one of my concerns, is that Diggle has seemed kind of like a fifth wheel. Anyway, this was a fantastic climax. Lines have been drawn in the sand, and Oliver, and once again, they never lose sight of the characters. The action never becomes too over the top or too overblown to where it eclipses the characters. So yeah, this time Oliver is faced with the decision: well, do I kill Slade or do I let him live and run the risk of this happening again? Although if I kill him, then that basically makes me no better than him. That basically reduces me to the killer that I once was. So that interesting moral dilemma was really what anchored this episode. Is that central theme of to kill or not to kill. Aside from that, all of the characters got their time to shine, for better or worse. Because the acting was so powerful this episode. Stephen Amell, Emily Bent Rickards, David Ramsey, Paul Blackthorne, Katrina Law, Katie Lotz, Manu Bennett. Jesus Christ, that guy. He's still my favorite character, even more so now. I mean, in season 1, he was my favorite character because he was the most intense. And yeah, but now that they've given him a lot more depth, a lot more of an emotional rivalry with Oliver, I find myself really liking him even more. So Manu Bennett's still one of the best one of the best villains that we've seen on this show, if not the best. In all honesty, I don't know how Season 3 is going to top this, and I'll get to that in a minute. Katie Cassidy was pretty good. John Barrowman was alright when he was there, although he didn't really get a chance to do much, and honestly his character felt kind of one note. That was one issue that I kind of had with it. But John Barrowman is always good as Merlin. Summer Glau barely got anything to do. I mean, they axed her off, thank God. And not that I dislike Summer Glau or anything, but I think her character had basically run its course. There are probably some fans of the Ravager character who are like, what? Come on! But it actually showed the League of Assassins killing someone. Which, that's kind of a contradiction. Like Sarah gets the broad idea, oh, I have an idea, I will call the League of Assassins here. And then Oliver tells them, okay, but no killing. You're telling a League of Assassins not to kill. Alright. Roy was back this episode, and thankfully he is completely cleansed of Mirakuru. So he's not the whiny, angsty, temperamental turd that he was for the past few episodes, and honestly, this is one of the most likable states that he's been in. I actually wish we had gotten more with him trying to cope with the repercussions of his little temper tantrums. But this was already jam-packed enough. So, was it a satisfying conclusion? For the most part, yes. Actually, no, not even for the most part. It was a satisfying conclusion. The final battle tied in very nicely with the flashback sections, during which we also saw some closure. I mean, Oliver finally driving the arrow through Slade's eye like we've been told he would, and at the same time supposedly losing Sarah on the island, leading him to believe that she was dead, hence his surprise at the beginning of this season. So we actually got some concrete answers this time around. And what else? The final fights in both the flashbacks and the present day were basically intercut together. I mean, Oliver is fighting Slade on the ship, while at the same time the Green Arrow is fighting Deathstroke in present day. So it was appropriate that those final battles be basically intercut together. But the thing is, if you do that, then you run the risk of it being kind of a cluster, kind of confusing, and kind of a mess. But thankfully, that didn't really happen. I mean, yeah, the cuts were obviously pretty quick at points, but for the most part, they still know how to film the action scenes, and they really knew how to balance these two fights in a way that not only you could make out what was going on, but also you were really emotionally invested in each of them separately. And the fact that they don't really get them confused with each other, the fact that they keep them separated while at the same time drawing visual parallels between the two, really helps the audience to stay emotionally invested in each of them separately. So I really like the final fight. I mean, aside from the fact that it is Green Arrow versus Deathstroke, and like I said, a lot of the other characters and a lot of the other plot lines really tied together pretty nicely. Sarah calling in the League of Assassins, it felt very appropriate, and to see them in action, to see in the tunnel the Team Arrow and the League of Assassins charging against Slade's Mirakuru army. That was awesome. I already used that word, and I know that is, I know that's kind of a general word nowadays. It's probably overused. Like, that was awesome. But my God, that scene was so well filmed, and the scope of it was just so... The scope and the intensity of it was just so perfect that honestly, I didn't think that they would be able to top it for the rest of the episode. I just thought to myself, is the final fight with Deathstroke going to be underwhelming compared to this? I don't know. But yeah, overall, this was a very emotionally and, in terms of action scenes, satisfying conclusion to the season and to several of the story arcs that have basically been set up since season one. We always knew that Oliver and Slade were going to have a falling out, but we never really realized it would be blowing this out of, I don't want to say out of proportion, but I don't really think many people could have predicted how dramatically resonant it would be. So yeah, I really liked this episode overall, and really there are only a few minor issues that I have with it. First of all, just a few little plot holes / nitpicks. Where did they get Roy's mask? All of a sudden, Roy has this mask that Oliver gives him as this sort of rite of passage, and it works as a rite of passage. Aside from the question of where did he get it? I mean, I guess Barry must have sent it over to him, but how did Barry know that he would have a red-themed sidekick? I don't know. Or did he just ask for another one? Like, could I have a red mask in the same style as mine? I don't know how he would have done that, considering that all this time Barry was supposedly in a coma. Or maybe he himself replicated design. I don't know. They could have made that clearer. Also, where did Roy learn to fight? I mean, I know we've seen glimpses of training, and they even say, and Oliver even says, use all of your training. Use everything you have learned. And I'm thinking, most of what we've seen of him interacting with the team has been fighting them or raging out against them. We haven't really seen a whole lot of him training. I mean, the most we saw was toward the beginning when he didn't know who they were and they were just having him slap water. And also that one shot where I think the episode The Promise, the home invasion one, where he shot that one arrow and he sucked at it. So you'll forgive me if I thought that Roy's supreme martial arts skills kind of came out of nowhere. And I'm not saying that they couldn't have trained him, and I'm not saying that it came completely out of nowhere. I just think they should have fallen back on that rule of show, don't tell. Maybe they just ran out of time. Maybe they just felt like, oh, well, we can't actually show him Oliver training him because we devoted almost an entire episode to that when Roy learned his identity. So we can't do that. But what we can do is say, we have been training him all along, you just haven't seen it. I thought that was kind of lazy. Toward the end, and this is a spoiler, from now on consider everything here a spoiler. I also found it kind of corny how Oliver basically left Slade in this prison bunker on the island, back on the island. I mean, I would have bought it if they would have handed him over to Amanda Waller. That would have actually made a lot more sense. But the fact that they leave him on the island in this abandoned prison bunker, I can see what they were going for from a dramatic standpoint, like, oh, this is where it all began. This is where we first met each other. You will stay here where you can't hurt anyone ever again. How does he get fed? I mean, are they just going to go back to the island periodically and drop some meat scraps down there and maybe a water bottle? How is he going to eat? How is he going to drink? How is he going to survive if he's all alone on the island in this prison cell? I don't know. I just don't know. That was ripe with... That was so filled with plot holes. I can immediately, and it's not one of these things of me looking back at it as a sort of retrospective nitpick. No. Even as I was watching, I was like, huh? Really? Uh, uh, I, uh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And finally, we come to the part of the episode that I didn't like, which was the last 5 to 10 minutes. Which was entirely devoted to setting up plot lines for season 3. First of all, Sarah goes back to the League of Assassins, which honestly seems like a big step backward for her. I mean, this whole season has been about her trying to move past her life in the League of Assassins. So this just seems like a huge step backward. And if it means Katie Lotz is off the show, then I am even more unhappy about it, because Katie Lotz has, up to this point, has grown into a very likable character, a very strong supporting character, despite the fact that she's not exactly the Black Canary from the comics. But speaking of that, she passes the torch to Laurel. No! She gives her leather jacket to Laurel. And in the episode before this, Laurel learned that her name in the League of Assassins translates out to the Canary. No, this was... Don't do this. Don't. Sarah is better. Sarah can fight. Sarah is more likable. Sarah's a better actress. It doesn't have to be this way. You know, you don't always have to follow the comics verbatim. And I know you would have gotten a lot of, and I know you've gotten a lot of flack from a lot of comic book aficionados about like, oh, the wrong Lance sister is the Black Canary. The Black Canary doesn't have her sonic scream. Come on, you had a good thing going here. Don't do this. Retcon this or something. Have Laurel get killed and have Black Canary and have Sarah come back and resume her crusade as the Black Canary. Don't take this likable character off the show and then pass the torch to Laurel in an attempt to follow the comics. You don't always need to follow the comics. Batman Begins, the characters of Henry Ducard and Ra's al Ghul were fused into one guy. You don't have to do this. Please don't do this. Oh, God. And like I said, Laurel hasn't exactly been that unlikable in these past few episodes, but that doesn't change the fact that for almost the entirety of the show, I have despised her. I have hated her guts. She has been a cheating little toad. I mean, she strung these two guys along, Oliver and Tommy. She got drunk. She resorted to pill popping. And she has been completely helpless. Every other week she is getting kidnapped or threatened with a gun or some other pointed weapon, or poisoned. Don't do this. I realize the need to strengthen her character, but I want to stay with Sarah. You know, I want to see Sarah tear some people apart. Enough griping about that. Immediately afterwards, and this is just bad. This is just bad filmmaking. This is bad editing. This is bad writing. Immediately after this kind of offbeat scene of Sarah leaving and Laurel giving her dad some crap about, like, you'll see her again, and they're kind of joking around, and all of a sudden Detective Lance has he collapses on the ground, and it turns out it's a form of delayed reaction from a blow that one of the Murakuru guys gave him. And he's spitting up blood, he's unconscious, he's not breathing, Laurel's calling an ambulance, and they pan out, and they don't cut back to that for the remainder of the episode. And I was like, God! I know he's gone through an arc, but you don't need to dispose of him just because he's gone through an arc. I mean, he went from hating the Arrow to loving the Arrow. Or not loving him, but basically seeing him as a strong ally. You don't need to kill him off just because his arc is done. He can go through a different arc. Don't kill off this character who has proceeded, who is really improved on his likability. When this show started out, I hated Detective Lance. But you know what? Over the course of the show, I really started to like him. And at this point, he's honestly one of the better characters on the show. But if they're insinuating that they're going to kill him off, then it just feels like a cheat. I mean, after all that he and the other characters have been through in driving Slade out of the city, in making the city a better place, it just feels like a huge slap in the face. And I know the reason they panned out is because they're probably not sure whether or not they're going to kill him off yet. Like, do we want to kill him off or do we not? So they leave both avenues open for season 3. Oh, and they screw up the island thing. The flashbacks on the island. Apparently Oliver, during those 5 years on the island, took a short detour to Hong Kong to help out Amanda Waller. Yeah, overall, most of this episode is awesome. Most of this episode is very emotionally satisfying. It is powerfully acted. The action scenes are exhilarating. It gives many of the characters and plot lines that we've seen previously. It brings them back, puts them to good use. Like I said, Diggle gets some good stuff. The Suicide Squad gets to do something. I was actually dreading, like, are they going to let Harley Quinn out? Please don't let Harley Quinn out. I don't think they're ready to bring her into live action yet. I don't really think they can top the animated version of Harley Quinn. I digress. But like I said, acting, solid. Action scenes, awesome. Pacing was appropriately fast, and it never really felt all that chaotic. I mean, intercutting between the characters like that felt earned. I mean, because we have gotten to know all of these characters, and this may be retreading some ground that I already mentioned last week, but yeah, considering that they've introduced all of these characters, I think it's more than appropriate to focus on all of them. And it never really loses focus on the main group of characters, i.e. Oliver and his team. So overall, I really loved most of this episode. It's just those last 10 minutes. Those last 10 minutes just... I don't want to say it nearly ruined the viewing experience for me, because overall I came off of it with a positive impression overall. It's just... those last 10 minutes are the last things I remember seeing, and the fact that it was so blatantly sequel bait. It was so blatantly set up for season 3, which honestly I can't see them topping this. I can't see them topping season 2. Maybe they can smooth out some of the writing, maybe they can smooth out some of the arcs, maybe they can smooth out some of the character development, maybe iron out the kinks, but from a sheer dramatic and emotional standpoint, I don't really think they can top what they did in season 2, or at least not by introducing something entirely new. Because Slade, like I said, has been with us since season 1. So it's not like this character that they brought out of nowhere for season 2. No, Slade has been a character on the Arrow show before they actually made him a villain. And he's had a personal connection with Oliver before they made him a villain. So, yeah, I am glad they didn't kill him, though. Yeah, overall, I really like this episode. I keep saying that, but those last 10 minutes, man. Oh, and I still didn't give a crap about Thea. I'm sorry, I still really don't like her. I still maintain that she's the most unlikable character on the show. I mean, I went on a tirade about Laurel, but in my opinion, Thea is even worse. I don't know. I don't know. I like this show. I really like this show, and overall, I thought season 2 vastly surpassed season 1. Probably because that they were more the writers were more confident this time around. They knew that they had gotten a full season order. Some of the episodes didn't really feel as sporadic as they could sometimes get during season 1. Season 1 was kind of all over the place in terms of the episode arcs. But here they had one singular overarching story over the entire season, so it was a much smoother viewing experience overall. And aside from that, the dramatic material was just stronger, I felt, in season 2. The action scenes were better, the acting was better, these actors fit more comfortably into their roles. So overall, I think Arrow is a pretty strong addition to the lineup of DC live action shows. Not that I've had a whole lot of experience with the live action shows, but from the standpoint of someone who watches a lot of the animated material, I think this definitely stand up with a lot of the animated material. Maybe not on the level of Batman the Animated Series, but still, I think despite some deviations from the comics, I think it's still a strong show for the character of Green Arrow, which honestly is not nearly as much of a household name as Batman. So the fact that they went with Green Arrow to make a TV show about was a pretty bold move. So yeah, this show continues to keep me interested. The Flash sneak peek was it was there. They didn't really show anything. It just showed him in the Flash suit and running at super speed to catch one of Oliver's arrows. It was a commercial. I mean, it wasn't part of the episode. It was a commercial. So I don't know. The Flash sneak peek was there. I mean, I'm already going to check it out. I mean, I'm already going to see how it is. So hopefully it measures up to Arrow, and hopefully they don't get too distracted trying to set up these other heroes, trying to ride off the success of Arrow. So, yeah, season 3, of course I'm curious. I want to see what they're going to do to follow this up. Yeah, I may not think that they would be able to top this, but hey, this show has surprised me before. So, until then, just until then.